This video is sponsored by my patrons on Patreon, and like them, you can pledge money to support me and help make my content better. In return, you can get videos one day earlier, an exclusive role in the Discord server, priority in Q&As or community play nights, and so much more. Check the link on the screen or in the description below to pledge today. Otherwise, like or vote, subscribe or follow, share, and even donate directly to Casual Mode Live via Twitch. However you support Casual Mode, your assistance is appreciated. Enjoy the show, and as always, keep it casual, y'all. On this episode of Fun 5e Builds, you asked for it. We're not rolling a character this time. Nope, this time I've done a little conceptual blacksmithing. 3 items that you can put into your game if you so choose. Fun 5e Builds proudly presents to you Magic and Metal. So, let's get started.
Why are we here? Because we're here. Roll the bones, roll the bones. Why does it happen? Because it happens. Roll the bones, roll the bones.
Hello out there, casual fanatics. Jeremy here, and welcome to Fun 5e Builds, the show that looks to add a little additional fun to 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons through creative character concepts and, in this particular case, interesting items. First, before we get into things, I have a blank notepad page up on here because I don't want to spoil what's to come. I do have a few additional things to say about this before we get started. The first of which is thank you to everyone who voted on the poll. The magic item ones ended up winning, so that's what I decided to go with, and hopefully this will be the first of multiple item specials. So secondly, the major inspiration for this was actually the D&D group that I am a part of with a few other Twitch streamers, Vertigo, Aldemir, and of course my little brother Ace of Hearts David. And it's been a really fun group to get to DM. I don't get to DM very much, mostly because I'm very self-conscious about it because of my style of DM, being kind of a little more loose and not as rule obsessed as most people, and because of previous attempts DMing going kind of sideways. But it's really, really fun, and I promise you, at some point after this video goes up, when I have my internet back again, we are going to finish this. We will finish this. What we're going to do after that, well, we'll just play it by ear. So, we'll see how that goes. Last, one of the major rule inspirations for this actually came from Dawn Forgecast, specifically Andrew Armstrong, whom I've had the pleasure of getting to talk with a few times on myself. He has created up a kind of a rules supplement for 5e called 5e Reforged under the OGL, and it included the rules that I used on at least one of these particular weapons. So between that, the Player's Handbook, and the Dungeon Master's Guide, all of those contributed into making these weapons happen. So I can't thank Dawn Forgecast enough. Of course, Wizards of the Coast, can't go without thanking them because of the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and all that. So, with that in mind, let's start with our weapons. And the first one that we need to go with actually came from that Twitch D&D group. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the highly aerodynamic Scimitar of Throwing. Yes, this is a scimitar that you can throw. By the way, for these images here, I just want to make one thing perfectly clear. They are all drawn by me. So if you've ever taken a look at patreon.com/casualmode and wondered why I have a goal to hire an artist, now you know why. I can't draw. Need I illustrate the point further? Anyway, yeah, all of these here are drawn by me, so please excuse the crudity of these models. They're not to scale, and I didn't have time to paint them. I took, for the visual appearance for this, I took inspiration partially from throwing knives and also just from the usual size of a scimitar itself, although the guard is much smaller and less ornate than a scimitar, largely because, well, it is designed to be a throwing scimitar. As for the actual build of it, and here's the part that came from 5e Reforged. Some previous editions of Dungeons & Dragons had the capability where if you weren't quite able to afford magic weapons quite yet at a certain level, you could commission or create what are called masterwork weapons. They're not as powerful as magic weapons. They don't have the enchantment bonuses, but they do have a little bit of extra oomph to them, and it can kind of help bridge the gap until you are able to get magical weapons. As such, while this weapon is not magical, it is masterwork. So it costs an additional 300 gold to buy or forge this. So it basically has a purchase cost of 325 gold. And it weighs about as much as a scimitar would. It is 3 pounds. The major part where its masterwork comes into play is that there's an additional +1 damage to it. Now, of course, that doesn't account for the whatever your strength modifier is whenever you're using it, but whatever damage you do gets a little boost to it because it's a masterwork weapon. And of course, being a scimitar, it is a finesse weapon, and it is a light weapon as well, though it is considered a martial weapon, so keep in mind when you're accounting for proficiencies there. If you're not proficient with partial, you're probably going to end up not being able to use this as effectively or at all. The special properties, because it is a highly aerodynamic scimitar of throwing, it has the ability to be thrown, range 30 feet for normal attacks, as far out as 120, about the same range as a javelin. And if you do manage to make a successful throw, if you manage to hit with a throw, anyone else that can see this, you have advantage against them on intimidation, because as soon as they see that, they're like, what the fuck? Oh, and I forgot to mention this. Because it is a highly aerodynamic scimitar of throwing, you see this mathematical formula that's on the blade? That's one of Bernoulli's equations. Yes, that Bernoulli. Like, responsible for us understanding the principle of lift as we know it, Bernoulli. And as a matter of fact, in this particular world, there are forge masters there by the name of, by the name of Bernoulli and Euler, great mathematician Euler, who in real life, Euler and Bernoulli kind of worked together. Bernoulli came up with some formula, and Euler later refined them. Yeah, the flavor text for this is, it's a special type of scimitar developed by Dwarven forge masters under the guidance of great scholars Bernoulli and Euler. It possesses unusual aerodynamic properties to the point that some consider it magic. It is instead very meticulously constructed to fly as far as a javelin when thrown. It is a rarely seen weapon, as most people are perfectly content to use a cheaper hand axe or javelin rather than spend their hard-earned money on something with more style. However, one who wields it well and lands a well-placed toss will find themselves looked upon with awe by friend and foe alike. So yeah, as far as usability, yeah, you could go with a hand axe for slightly lesser range. You could go just with a javelin, but that would be too easy. Right. Moving on, I did decide to also go with a magic weapon. I kind of created one of 3 different kinds of items here. And for the magic, I decided to go with magic armor. And again, my terrible drawing sense here. This is the +1 hide armor of false affability. Since it is a rare magic item, it is very expensive, $59.99. Why not an even 6,000? Because I didn't want it to be an even 6,000. Because I'm a dork. Anyway, it weighs about as much as regular hide armor, about 12 pounds. Like hide armor, it is medium armor because it is a +1 armor. Your base AC to this is 13, and then you can add on your dex modifier up to an additional +2. Now, the special properties that it has, along with being magical, 1, it can be worn as a light armor. So say if you have a rogue who is not proficient in medium armor, you can still wear this. Just know that if you do so, you have disadvantage on stealth. I mean, let's face it, this armor, the way that it looks, not exactly going to blend into the shadows, you know. It's something that you'd wear to, a situation in which you might want to wear this armor would be, say, you're having to sneak into a party and you're kind of having to pass yourself off as somebody important. Thus, the hide armor of false affability. To that extent, when you wear this armor, while you have disadvantage on stealth, you do have proficiency in charisma and advantage on deception and persuasion checks. So, walk in there, got your supposedly suit and tie on, got the appearance of class, even if you possess 0. Walk in there. People are going to be drawn to you because you do stand out. Again, the disadvantage for stealth if it's worn as if it were light armor. You can still use that to their advantage because, people are going to come up to you, but they're not necessarily going to think you're a threat, and you may actually be able to talk to them and get them to do what you want to do. And just so you know, this last little line of information here, I did paraphrase that from Fiddler on the Roof. What can I say? It's my favorite musical. And it won't make one bit of difference if I answer right or wrong. When you're rich, they think you really know. I love that movie. Only the movie version. No knock against Zero Mostel. I just find Topola more authentic, Tevye. Anyway. Last but not least, I had to create something for higher power games. Something a little more epic in scale. To that end, I decided to create an artifact. And if you go into the Dungeon Master's Guide, one of the ways that you can create artifacts is you can take a look at these tables that they have of some beneficial properties and detrimental qualities. You can decide how many of each that you want, and then you roll a pair of d10s, and there's certain ranges for things that you want to do. So say you roll a pair of d10s. In this case, I rolled a 92 on my d10s. What that 92 can get you largely depends on that table. Usually at that point for that range, it's going to be something either really good or really bad, depending on whether you're looking at beneficial or detrimental properties. With that in mind, here's what I rolled out for my artifact. I give you the Exalted Sisters Morningstar. This is a weapon, much like a regular Morningstar. It can be wielded like a regular plus 3 Morningstar. It does require attunement, since it is an artifact, and there's not anyone who recognizes this as an artifact. Any shopkeeper who sees this is going to be knowledgeable enough to know what it is, and they will not take it from you. You cannot get rid of this by selling it. As for damage, I decided to go with a little higher damage here on here. 3 hit dice worth of damage there, because I didn't want to just tack on additional damage to it. Besides, with weapons like this that have pluses on it, that's usually how it works. That the damage that you get is 1 additional die for each plus. So 3d8. I forgot to put the type of damage on there. 3d8 bludgeoning is what a Morningstar is. Now, here are the properties of the Morningstar. I rolled up 2 minor beneficial properties, 2 major beneficial properties, and then 1 major detrimental property. The minor beneficial properties, you can cast Sacred Flame as an action when attuned, the Sacred Flame cantrip. You can cast, gain, once you're attuned, you gain resistance against radiant damage. Basically, if someone tries to use radiant damage against you, you take half damage. As a major beneficial property, you get Divine Word as kind of a, to steal from 4E terminology here, is kind of a daily ability. Although, as you can see there, Divine Word is a level 7 spell, and it can create a lot of damage, so it's a very powerful spell. But if you take a d6 and you roll it, I just rolled a 6. After you cast that spell, you can roll a d6. If you roll a 6 on that die, that power is regenerated. You can use it again. 1 through 5, you have to take a long rest in order to get it back. And the other major beneficial property there is your wisdom score increases by 2 to a maximum of 24. The reason for this is because ideally this is going to be a weapon held by a cleric, and for clerics, one of their major scores is wisdom. So obviously you're going to want to boost wisdom to thus increase their spellcasting ability. There is a major detrimental property to this. With all artifacts, there's always some kind of a give and take in there. For this particular item, once you attune to it, you have to complete a quest that is spoken into your mind like a gas spell. And you cannot do anything but that immediately. So if you find this weapon and someone attunes to it, your DM creates a quest that everything else has to go on hold for. You have to head off in this direction. Suggestions could be redeeming a Death Knight, finding a fallen angel to destroy, seeking out a demon or a devil to cast out. There's any number of things that could be done, but my suggestions here are that it be tied into some kind of an immortal creature. I mean, you could go out, try to find like a demi-lich to finish off as well as a part of this. Now, when it comes to artifacts, there's also ways that you can destroy them. Usually it's incredibly difficult to destroy an artifact. And in this particular case, this Morningstar is connected to the life of its former wielder the Exalted Sister. So the only way that this Morning Star can be destroyed is if you kill the Exalted Sister and ideally her companions, because in my way of thinking, the Exalted Sister is going to be like this Archon level, demigoddess level threat, but even by herself, she is not going to be enough of a challenge. So you would need to have like some lesser people around her. Alternatively, what you could do with the artifact, if you don't want to destroy it, but you do want to get rid of it, you could go on a final quest to locate the Exalted Sister and then return the Morning Star to her. When that happens, the artifact is not destroyed, but you do get credit for completing a quest, and undoubtedly there would be some kind of reward that your dungeon master would provide for you in return for giving this weapon back to the Exalted Sister. By the way, this was inspired by previous D&D characters of mine. As you know, I have a 4E character named Albereo Rocinante, who later ascended into becoming a demigoddess known as the Lady Darkstar. When she did that, as tends to happen when gods suddenly appear, there were worshippers that popped up, and out of those, she chose clerics of the Darkstar, the Sacred Sisters of the Darkstar. One of them, the very first Saint Sister of the Darkstar Order, was a cleric I played by the name of Calith Argenta. And in the end, when she passed on, her body was forever incorruptible, just as beautiful as she was in her prime, and laid to rest. And her spirit went on to the astral plane to stand alongside her lady and help the Lady Darkstar basically become the enforcers of the gods, the one who keeps all the other gods in line, who basically, when any god, good or bad, does something like really shitty, they're the ones who go and lay the smack down. So that's the storyline behind this. You have this devoted cleric who basically now stands at the right hand of her goddess. And she previously wielded this Morning Star, which when she passed on, it became lost to the material plane, and now either has to be returned to her or destroyed by killing her. So that's kind of the backstory behind that, and you can use that to fodder like grander quests on there and lead to something big on a planar scale. So like I said, this is going to be like level 20 stuff. But yeah, that is the Exalted Sisters Morningstar. So we've got 3 great weapons there on basically 3 different levels. We've got the kind of entry-level weapon here for levels 1 through 5, a masterwork weapon that can be used, that can be located, for, as it was in my case, in the hands of a goblin. Something ridiculously rare, but something that they just happen to come across, that then ends up becoming something that can be used regularly. You then have the hide armor of false affability, which can basically turn a rogue or even someone else who wears hide armor, like say a druid, into James Bond all of a sudden. And then the Exalted Sisters Morningstar, which can be used as like the capstone to a grand campaign. So that's it. That's 3 solid items there that you can use. Are they balanced? No. But they are here where you can use them if you so choose. And at some point, if I decide to revisit, if I'm able to, I may revisit this with, well, once I've come across someone who can draw much better than I can. And let me know what you think about this, because I am interested in trying to figure out other things. I actually did have quite a bit of fun trying to figure out what I was going to create here. Some of it was a little bit harder than others. The artifact did take a little more work than, say, the scimitar of throwing, which, yeah. But I still did have quite a bit of fun going through and creating these weapons, these items. I want to know what you think, so let me know down in the comments below. And as always, like, share, subscribe, follow, Patreon, donations, all the things. So, until next time, I'm the Casual Shadow Jeremy. This has been Fun 5e Builds. Roll well, and keep it casual, y'all.
Why are we here? Because we're heroes of old.